Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. We've got some cracking guests on the show tonight. We've got Niall Gardner. He's coming on my show for the very first time. We've got a right voice, a right-leaning voice. That's Linda Duberly. She's a journalist and broadcaster. The left voice tonight is Matthew Larser. He's back on the show. He's going to be banging on about 13 years of Tory rule. We've also got Back in the Day with Sue Cook, legendary BBC broadcaster. And we've got a lovely young lady on tonight, just some cracking impressions. That's Francine Lewis. But first, let's go to the news.
Good evening. Your top stories from the GB Newsroom. The Prime Minister says plans by some groups to protest during Remembrance commemorations are provocative and disrespectful. In a statement, Rishi Sunak said the right to remember in peace and dignity must be protected. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer echoed those comments, saying he supports the police in whatever action is needed. It comes after reports of plans by demonstrators to march during Remembrance events, calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. The Foreign Secretary James Cleverly earlier said the focus should remain on Remembrance. The Israeli military has confirmed 260 IDF troops have been wounded in the fighting in Gaza. People in the north of the enclave have been facing intense bombardment. The Israeli Prime Minister says there'll be no pause in fighting until more than 240 hostages are freed by Hamas. It comes as the US Secretary of State's been meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu to discuss steps to minimise civilian casualties. Anthony Blinken said a humanitarian pause was important to help get aid into the Strip. Scotland's First Minister Humza Yousaf says his family has been able to leave Gaza through the Rafah crossing. They're among 92 British nationals trapped in the enclave that are approved to travel through into Egypt today as the border opens again for limited evacuations. Palestinian officials say more than 700 foreign nationals have crossed in the past 2 days, including dozens of critically injured people. In other news, 2 women have been charged under the Terrorism Act after images of paragliders were displayed at a pro-Palestinian march in central London. 29-year-old Hiba Al-Hayy and 26-year-old Pauline Ankunda are accused of carrying or displaying an article to arouse suspicion they're supporters of the terrorist group Hamas. The incident occurred last month. They've both been bailed and they'll appear at Westminster's Magistrates' Court on the 10th of November. Conservative MP Bob Stewart's been found guilty of a racially aggravated public order offence. The Beckenham MP racially abused a man after he allegedly told him to go back to Bahrain outside the Foreign Office last December. He also told him, "You're taking money off my country," and to go away. The Chief Magistrate said Stewart will not be jailed. And Zara Alina's family have described the reduction of her killer's sentence as a shallow triumph, which sends a disheartening message to women. Jordan McSweeney killed the 35-year-old law graduate as she walked home from a night out in East London last June. McSweeney, who refused to attend his sentencing hearing last December, was handed a 38-year life sentence. The Court of Appeal ruled that that was too high and has reduced it to 33 years. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying Play GB News. Now it's back to Lee Anderson's Real World.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World, and tonight I'm joined by Niall Gardner, who's a former advisor to the late Margaret Thatcher, and left in the corner, Matthew Larser. He's back in the pub. No doubt tonight, Matthew, will be in the same old tripe, which is 13 years of Tory rule. Look out for that one. I'll come back to you in a minute. Look, Niall, straight on it. Suella Braverman, friend of mine. I think she's a great Home Secretary. I think she's got balls of steel. She's made some comments this week about hate marches on the streets of the UK. Now, the usual lot are saying it's hateful speech from Suella. It's controversial. It's aggressive. I don't think so. I think she's saying what most people in our great country are thinking.
Yeah, I agree. I think Suella Braverman has been absolutely brilliant in terms of her statements here. These marches are hate marches. A lot of the demonstrators taking to the streets are pro-Hamas. Many have issued all kinds of menacing statements. The Home Secretary is absolutely right to condemn these protests. She is right as well to highlight the dangers of multiculturalism, which of course she has attacked on a number of occasions. And we are seeing huge demonstrations on the streets of British cities in support, frankly, of a terrorist organisation, Hamas, brutally murdering over 1,400 Israelis. They've killed a lot of British citizens as well. And these are not peaceful protests. In fact, many of these protesters are issuing all kinds of manner of threats against Jewish people. This kind of hate speech should have no place in British society. Okay. There should be zero tolerance for anti-Semitism.
Okay, Niall, thanks for that. I'm going to go over to my good friend Matthew.
So I think it's undoubtedly true that there are hateful people on these marches, and some of the behaviour has been reprehensible, and some of the slogans used and the attitudes taken. But not everybody who's calling for a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire in Gaza. I want the war to be over as soon as possible. But not everybody on those marches is full of hate. So I think it was an ill-chosen phrase. I mean, on the way here, I walked past the Oxfam shop, and there's a sign in the window calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. I mean, you know, clearly Oxfam's not a supporter of Hamas. So you're getting the usual kind of a peace crowd on the marches as well. But there are some very unpleasant people saying some very unpleasant things.
Matthew, doesn't the country at this moment need a strong Home Secretary like Suella to say these things, to get behind the British people, to get behind our police, which is an important thing, because I think some of our police forces at the moment in London and in Manchester have been found wanting.
Well, I think absolutely we need a strong Home Secretary. I know you're going to laugh if I say we've had 13 years of chopping, changing, police numbers going down to a record low, and now going back up somewhat. But the police do need clarity. I mean, I've spoken to a former police officer this week. It's very difficult to police these marches if they're given the sanction to go ahead by the government, because actually dragging people out of the crowd is basically the potential to start a riot. So I'm pleased that this weekend we saw the police actually gathering intelligence, putting photos out there, and then finding out who the people were and arresting them the day after the march.
I think, Niall, it's probably. I mean, Matthew makes a fair point. I think it's reasonable to suggest that, you know, thank goodness we've been in power for 13 years. Otherwise, 5 or 6 years ago, we could have had Diane Abbott as the Home Secretary. Yeah,
you can imagine if Jeremy Corbyn was the Prime Minister right now, he would be supporting, of course, all of these pro-Hamas demonstrators. And it would be a totally different picture. But you know, having said that, with a Conservative government in place, and you've got a great Home Secretary with Suella Braverman, you need to see the police taking action, arresting individuals who are making pro-terror statements. They're acting against the law. There should be arrests. There should be prosecutions. In some cases, there should be the deportation of those who are supporting terrorism, if they're dual nationals, for example, and hold foreign passports. And so we need to see a far tougher approach being taken here, and we cannot allow the kind of horrific anti-Semitism that we're seeing on the streets of British cities today. And there should be zero tolerance for that, and a Conservative government should really be enforcing the law 100% and ensuring the police follow the directions of the Home Secretary.
Matthew, we've seen problems I think it was Tuesday night, actually, in Liverpool Street Station. There was a massive demonstration there, brought the station to a halt, and quite a few, again, pro-Hamas chants, the usual rent-a-mob, the professional protesters. I think the socialist worker was there. We've seen the problems in Manchester as well, where we saw actual police officers ripping down posters of kidnapped victims, I think it was.
Yeah, that's appalling.
It's absolutely appalling. What's going on, Matthew?
Well, I mean, the police have got themselves into a mess in certain parts of the country on this. And actually, for example, at Waterloo Station, another big London station, at the weekend, they did issue the commander issued the notice, which means they can stop and search without without due cause, and they managed to disrupt that. So and ensure that dissipated quickly. So the police, I agree. I think we all agree. We don't want to see anti-Semitism on the streets. We don't want to see pro-Hamas declarations on the streets, which are, after all, illegal. And we need the police to be firm. But, I mean, ultimately, we must protect the right to protest, because that's one of our core values. I mean, look, I would say to all the people who are protesting, they're doing their cause a great deal of harm, because they're wrapped up with unpleasant people. You and I know, Lee, that any demonstration where the socialist workers placard, you've lost Middle England even before they get to the next line of the placard. So the police need to be firm, and anybody who does want to change course in Gaza needs to think again about how they're doing about
Heartbreaking
it.
common sense there from Matthew, Niall. The Labour Party in a bit of a pickle over this.
Oh, they certainly are, and I think that the reality is that Labour remains a hard left party.
Yeah.
You do have some moderates in some leadership roles, but the reality is that the extremists in the Labour Party are in large numbers, and it is frankly, I think, a frightening vision of Britain's future if you have a hard left government in power who would frankly tolerate all of these protests, these demonstrations. They would do nothing to act against the pro-Hamas sympathisers on the streets of British cities. And the Labour Party split right down the middle. In many respects, this is still Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. Keir Starmer may be the leader, but in reality, the Corbyn supporters are still there in large numbers. They're very influential in terms of how Labour is overall responding to this
let Matthew
situation.
come back on that. We know that Matthew is a former Labour advisor. I think he might want to come back on that a little bit. Pro-Hamas?
Absolutely. Look, the only person, nobody in the Labour Party is pro-Hamas. Let's be absolutely clear on that. Andy McDonald...
Jeremy Corbyn's in the Labour Party.
Jeremy Corbyn's not a Labour MP.
He's in the Labour Party.
Well, I think he won't be for very, very long. I'm not absolutely sure his status of whether he's a member of the party or a member... He's certainly not a Labour member of Parliament. Keir's been absolutely firm. He's not going to be standing as a Labour candidate at the next election. Andy McDonald, who was the MP who injudiciously used the from the river to the sea chant this week, has been suspended. So the Corbyn element is no way, it's no new Labour, new danger. There's no reds under the bed, as it were. Now, that's just not true. Keir is absolutely in control of the party, and despite pressure from people who don't support Hamas but do support a ceasefire, that may be naive, we can argue about that, but they're not pro-Hamas. People like Anas Sarwar, who is a total Blairite, Starmerite, whatever you want to call him, is not suddenly a Corbynista who's going to take power, and nor is Andy Burnham or some of the other people who have called for a ceasefire. So it's completely wrong to characterise that as the Corbyn threat is still there. It isn't.
And yet, now, we're seeing in the cities like Manchester and London, the people responsible for the policing are Labour mayors.
Yeah, exactly. And it's no surprise that you're seeing these huge demonstrations taking place, far left demonstrations under, of course, Labour leadership in London and in Manchester. Sadiq Khan, I think, has been a huge disaster, frankly, in terms of his lack of leadership in London. You do not see Sadiq Khan condemning these protesters. He's taking no action at all. And the weak-kneed police response that we're seeing is in large part due to Sadiq Khan's approach. And this is not the fault of the Home Secretary. It's the fault of the weak leadership you're seeing from the mayor, who's very sympathetic.
I'm getting you. Look, it's time for the yes or no quiz now, guys. So let's crack on with it. Right, it's time for the yes or no quiz with Matthew and with Niall. Look, guys, you know the rules. It's a yes or no. No dodging, no cowardly behaviour, no scurrying off. It's yes or no, or there will be a white feather in the post. Indeed. With you, Matthew, straight away, is Khan doing enough to stop the hateful demos in London?
No.
No.
Niall, to you, is Suella correct when she describes some of the demos as hate marches?
100% yes.
I can't mark you for that. It's got to be a yes or no.
Yes.
Matthew?
No.
Ooh. 3, Matthew, should we ban protests next to war memorials?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Number 4, Niall, does white privilege exist?
No.
Yes.
And final question for you, Matthew, more grammar scores, yes or no?
No.
Yes.
I'll let you get away with that one. You answered nearly perfectly, Niall. A little bit of discrepancy amongst...
It's just because he's very, very upmarket, Niall, so, you know...
Yeah, it's a difficult quiz, isn't it? It's a yes or no, so it can be a little bit difficult. It's a tough quiz. So do you want to come back on one,
Yes,
Niall?
on the war memorials question. Absolutely, we should ban protesters from protesting next to the Cenotaph, for example. They have no business being there. These are sacred places. You cannot have these, frankly, loony left protesters who have no respect, frankly, for those who gave their lives for Britain in World War I and World War II. And we should absolutely ban these protesters.
I was asked yesterday, now, should we bring back the water cannons?
We should, absolutely. I think they're very effective. They've been used in many other European cities, and it sends the right message to pro-Hamas protesters.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we can manage this without water cannon. But we need to think about better ways to protect the cenotaph, particularly in this month of all months, and similarly with war memorials around the country. So I think there should be agreement across party, because it's not a party political issue, that protests that, I mean, frankly, people have long walked past the cenotaph peacefully on most protests, but now that's been abused, then clearly a different route's going to have to be found, even if that takes people further away from the Palace of Westminster.
I think what I would say, guys, is my office in Westminster is right outside the cenotaph. You can practically touch the cenotaph. And I did notice a few days ago there was a fence around it. I think it was last Wednesday when we was in Parliament. There was a massive demonstration on Whitehall. It was quite scary. The noise was quite scary, and it just seems a little bit. It's infuriating for me. It's our city. Londoners have got a right to walk about the business. They've got a right to go and pay the respects at the cenotaph any time of the year, not just on Remembrance Day. And to see that the demonstrations there and people climbing up the statues, people draping flags, people chanting all sorts of nastiness was beyond the pale. But
it's disgraceful.
It's disgraceful. Look, thanks for taking part. It's 5-5, by the way, so you can both have brownie points for that. But look, coming up next on Lee Anderson's Real World, we've got Sue Cook, the former BBC TV presenter.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christys, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World, and joining me today is the legend Sue Cook. I can't believe you sat there next to me, Sue. This is unbelievable. When they told me he was coming on the show, I thought, wow, not these Sue Cook, but you're here. Thank you. Thank you for giving up your time.
Thank you for asking me.
So talk about some of your time with the BBC, because you started, I think, in the 70s.
That's right.
Did quite a few years. And I want to just chat a little bit about how broadcasting's changed from when you started to the social media age of today.
Well, I was lucky, really, because I started at Capital Radio. I heard that commercial radio was coming to London, to England, and I thought, I love pop music and I love commercial radio. So I actually applied, copied off I was working, had a very boring job at the Reader's Digest. So I was dying to get out of there. Yeah. So I clambered across some rubble in a building site that was Capital Radio's beginnings. I think I was the 7th person they took on. They said you can sit in the library and collect, information and file stories and things. So I sort of helped to build up then, because they had a newsroom to start with. So this was 6 months before they went on air. And on the day Capital went on air, which was 50 years ago, almost, just 2 weeks ago, we had a big party. And the programme's controller, Michael Butt, came and stuck out a paw, grabbed me, took me down the corridor and said, I think you're going to broadcast tonight. You're going to be on the phone-in. So when people phone up with problems and questions, you know where all the files are, and you've got all these organisations' addresses and things. You can tell them where they might get some help. So I was shaking so much, I had a cigarette. I smoked in those and a cup of coffee. Couldn't get either of them near my lips because I was so nervous. But then I found I absolutely adored being on air, to my surprise. It's the last thing I thought I'd ever do. So
how did you make that transition to the BBC then?
Well, after that, it was the consumer era. I don't know if you remember, in the early 70s, interest rates were something like 17%. Inflation was, I think, even went up to 24% at one stage. So everybody's mortgages, nobody could afford anything. I mean, we think we're having trouble now, but it was pretty tough then. So prices would change by the day. Yeah. So they asked me to do a food price news, and I had to go to Billingsgate, which is where the fish market was, at 5 o'clock in the morning, and look and see what was coming in off the boats. I had to go into Smithfield Market and see what was coming on and what was going to be good value. Yeah. And the
you see, you're talking my sort of language now, because this is as a young lady, you were having to budget and look for the best bargains for the foods, the cheapest cuts of meat, the cheapest fish, the cheapest vegetables and stuff like that. When as a politician I say stuff like that, we've lost those skills now. I get actually lambasted and slated in the press by the left-wing media.
Because they think you're not telling the truth, or...?
Yeah, I just think that, we've lost those skills that we had many, many years ago. I always bang on about people's forgot how to cook properly, they forgot how to get the cheapest ingredients, the cheapest cuts of meat, to shop around, because it's too convenient to go to a supermarket and buy everything under one roof, and actually I think sometimes you're getting ripped off.
And also, I think I don't like wasting anything.
It must have come from good parenting, from your mother, who I believe is still around in this town.
Yeah, I was going to see Mum after I've seen you.
How old is she?
She's 104. She was 104 in August. Insists on living on her own. Yeah. No help, no care. She has a cleaner once a week, and my brother goes once a week, and I go once a week, and we bring her something to eat, and then leave a few leftovers in the fridge, and she survives on that.
A proud lady.
And she will not have any help, and she will not go to a lovely residential care place I found for her, where they've got 5 chefs and lots of activities and beautiful gardens. She won't go. No, this is my house. I've been here 50 years. I'm not moving.
Not interested in a part-time job then, anytime soon, your mother?
That'd be quite good. She probably would.
I think GB News are recruiting, actually.
She's batty enough.
Yeah. Think she'd come on here?
Well, you could try, yes.
Can we get her on, producer?
She likes a gin and tonic.
Yeah, gin and tonic, we can sort that out. But look, seriously, Sue, broadcasting over the years, we said previously, I was speaking to you earlier about the BBC used to be a place of comfort in the 70s and 80s. You've got your Blue Peter, your John Craven's news rounds. I guess when you started as well, it was totally impartial. We didn't know which way a newsreader or a Match of the Day presenter voted, weren't interested. But now it seems to be getting a little bit political. And I don't mind broadcasters being political if they're a private company, but they're publicly funded by the taxpayer.
Yeah. Well, all I really cared about when I went to the BBC was the well-being of ordinary people.
Yeah.
And I represented ordinary people. So my job was to find out what was going on around, what was going to affect their lives, and explain it in an accessible way so that people knew what was going on and could fight back and help them with campaigns and so on. So I went from Capital Radio and the food prices thing. The BBC decided that was a good idea as well. So I got contacted by a producer to do something similar about consumerism and prices and things on a 3-month contract. But I thought, well, you know, it's the BBC. To be asked to join the BBC is such a wonderful privilege.
Yeah.
So I'll do it in a 3-month contract and hope for the best. And I was freelance, but mostly for the BBC
So
ever
what
since.
do you think is the most memorable part of your TV career?
I suppose the most memorable and most enjoyable, although I adored Capital Radio, it was so fun being part of a new thing, but the most memorable, I think, was Children in Need.
Oh, yeah?
Because, again, you were doing a wonderful thing and
making lots of money.
Meeting all the big stars of the moment who would come on after whatever West End show they'd been on, sometimes, or whatever soap opera they'd been on, and it was just huge fun. And at the end, at 2 o'clock in the morning, after 7 hours of live telly, which was terrifying, you'd be able to announce a massive total that people had given to make a difference to children.
That must give you a buzz for weeks, that.
Yeah, it did, it did.
And must have been low points in your TV career as well, some horrible things you've had to report on.
Well, the Crime Watch, there were some really upsetting crimes, particularly when it was a child who was murdered or kidnapped or sexually assaulted or... I did it for 11 years, but after a while I began... When I found myself living in my own reconstructions in my head, I'd come and think, yeah, well, she went into the newsagent and she bought a paper and a bar of fruit and nut, and then she was last seen proceeding in an easterly direction towards... I thought, hang on a minute, you know, this is getting to me. Or looking at people thinking, they look a bit suspicious. Red hat, what time is it? Yes, I'll remember that. I thought, no, this is getting to me. It's time I left.
So you joined at a young age, spent your whole life doing this sort of work. I guess there's young people out there watching this now, maybe, that want to get into media, into broadcasting. What sort of advice would you give to them?
I would say don't do a media communications course. Do something else. Do any other course, any other training course. Bring something else to the table. Show that you can be committed to something and you can find out about things, you can investigate things. Just don't do a media communications course. You can learn that on the job.
See, you know, you hear of people, they start off making the tea or working in the canteen or running about doing errands, and then, you know, 10, 15 years later, they're actually not running the place, but doing reasonable jobs broadcasting because they've learnt the ropes, haven't they?
Be humble enough to start low.
Yeah.
I think it's really important.
Well, look, Sir, we've got Wokie of the Week. We've got the trophy. That's there. So this is the part of the show where we pick 3 individuals or organisations that's been incredibly woke during the week. I've done something daft. Better put my glasses on because I can't read this. So the first, these are £1.50. These glasses are. They're 1.5s. Wokie 1 is the MI5. Has been accused of being institutionally racist against white people after GB News presenter Jacob Rees-Mogg, State of the Nation, revealed that the Domestic Intelligence Agency was offering summer internships exclusively for non-white people. Just park that one there, non-white people. Wokie 2 is Somerset Council. I've been there. Campaigners are hitting out at a council accused of writing out women after it purged the word mother from its maternity policy. Somerset Council has announced the replacement of new and expectant mothers with the phrase new and expectant parents. And the third Wokie is James O'Brien. Now, I don't know why, but he makes an appearance every single week. He does win it sometimes.
He needs the publicity, does he?
I think he does, yeah. I think his figures are failing, so he probably needs the figures. So seriously, Sue, MI5...
They're both plain wrong.
Yeah.
They're both extremely annoying. It's just which is wronger and most annoying. I think it's the difficult one. I think probably Somerset Council, actually.
Listen, you're a woman, obviously. All this nonsense about pronouns and identity, how does it make you feel as a woman?
It's
Do you think...
absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
It's just bonkers.
You know, when you go into a local department store and you want to try clothes on, I mean, I wouldn't be happy if I'd got daughters or my missus were getting changed in a changing room next to some bloke who comes in who decided that day to put a frock on and a bit of lipstick, decided he's going to be a woman.
Well, in reality, it's 0.0001% of the population it actually affects. But, by the fuss that's made, you'd think it was 50% of the population. It is really ridiculous. I hope it's a phase we're going through because it's mad.
So Somerset Council, get a grip. You've won Wokie of the Week, ordered by the legendary Sue Cook. Absolutely brilliant. So
I want to see it change.
It needs changing.
Yes.
Well, look, do not go away because next we're going out on the road and into Uxbridge to speak to some real people. So So I'm with Peter Hewitt today in Smith's Garden Centre in Uxbridge. Come down for a different destination, different location. Want to get out there and talk to some real people. Don't come much realer than Peter. Peter and I talk about business, run up to Christmas.
Yep.
It should start to see a bit more footfall in your shop. How's it going at the moment?
It's been slow so far, Christmas, but I think Halloween's had a big impact this year.
Yep.
I think more people have spent money on Halloween.
Right, OK.
So we're just waiting for that to pass through.
OK.
And then we're hoping that as we get into the middle end of November, then things will start to pick up, particularly through the Christmas shop.
I've just been in that other room there, and you've got all the Christmas decorations up. That looks brilliant, by the way. That's definitely worth a visit. In the next few weeks, we're going to have the autumn statement. The Chancellor's going to make some announcements.
Yep.
What would you like to see in there?
It's all to do with the cost of living rise, I think.
Okay.
There's got to be something to do with tax cuts, but it's very unlikely that they will go down that route because of where the economy is.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I'm not sure what he's going to actually do to stimulate sales during the course of the next 6 weeks or so.
So obviously through COVID, hopefully we're away from that now, but you know, the government spent our money, about 500 billion to keep businesses open, keep shops open. I'm sure you probably got a bit of support here for staff and for furlough.
Yes, we did,
and stuff like that, which was a good thing. It kept businesses open, but is there anything you've learnt from COVID, you know, work-wise, operating differently, staff-wise?
The cafe, we've changed. We've changed our food offering. We've made our cafe much smaller following COVID, and that's settled down really well now.
OK. It's not just a garden centre, though, is it? It's a cafe. It's like you could spend half a day in here, couldn't you, walking around?
It's a destination. From our point of view, that's what we try and make it, a destination.
Well, listen, thanks for letting us come in today. Thanks for showing us around your wonderful store. And I hope that you're going to have a really good Christmas and a very good New Year.
Good to meet you.
Cheers, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Now then, I just had to bring you into Smith's Garden Centre to the Christmas part. Absolutely stunning. But look, do not go away, because after the break, we've got Right versus Left with Linda Doobily and Matthew Larser.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Acquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's on your teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
So joining me now for right versus left, we've got the former Labour Party advisor, Matthew Lanza. Somebody put Lanza, didn't
I
they?
know. I'm going to start singing. I do my Mario Lanza impression.
We've got the media advisor and communication coach, Linda Doobly. Thanks for coming on, Linda. It's your first time. We mentioned earlier about the Israel conflict and how it affects the Labour Party. Look, we've got a general election next year, Matthew, and this is something that the Starmer doesn't need
Absolutely.
At the moment. It's dividing his party. We saw earlier this week that I think it was 300 odd Labour councillors have written to Sir Keir Starmer to ask him to back a ceasefire. What's he going to do?
Well, look, I think it is by far the biggest political crisis that Keir's faced since he became leader. Certainly inside the party, it is the biggest challenge that he's had. I think that what he's done is this week we saw him give his speech where he set out in detail his position, which I think was very reasoned and sensible. And I think, frankly, if I'd been advising him, I've got him to do that 10 days before, much sooner after the now sort of infamous LBC interview where he appeared to give Israel a blank cheque. And that's what really spooked the party. Because it's not just the hard left in the party. Lee, you will remember what it was like back in the day. But the party, the party's full of quite what you might call kind of woolly, PC, charity, international development types. That's the kind of the party's. It's quite a sort of. It wears its heart on its sleeve, and that's what's driving this. It's not driven by support for Hamas. It's not driven by anti-Semitism. It's driven by what you may argue is a naive, and that's what Keir did in his speech. But it's a kind of naive belief in doing the best for the people of Gaza. And so I think now Keir set out his position, it's incumbent on the party to rally around that. And Keir will have to be firm if people don't.
It's OK being naive, Linda, but this is a chap who wants to be the Prime Minister.
That's
of our
right,
country.
that's exactly what I thought. There's no point in talking about naivety if you want to actually run the country. Now, the point is, he's got behind this idea of the ceasefire, but Matt's exactly right. He should have done that 10 days ago. He should have done that really, really fast, but he didn't. And the thing is now, it's obvious that he's caught between a rock and a hard place. And actually, just think back a couple of weeks to how ebullient he was and pleased he was at the victories at Tamworth and Mid-Beds, and now he's got this massive situation right in front of him. Now, I listened to the speech live at Chatham House. I thought, actually, it was a good speech. And, you have to measure your audience. That wasn't the kind of speech where you do a big oratorial delivery. It was a short and reasoned speech outlining his position, but he has to nail his feet to the floor now. Yeah. He can't budge.
Absolutely, yeah. He has to, now he's set out the position clearly. I think you're absolutely right. It is now what the party needs to do is needs to give Keir the space to show the leadership that he needs. And look, frankly, we cannot have people virtue signalling, whether they're mayors or councillors.
Well, that's true. I mean, Linda, it might have been a decent speech, but those waiting outside didn't think so, did they?
No, but at the end of the day, when you make that kind of important speech, and it was important, you have to choose exactly what you're going to do in terms of priorities. And it was the right speech for the audience internally. And actually, when it was broadcast, I thought it was fairly effective. But at the end of the day, he's still between a rock and a hard place, and Matthew, this won't change.
Matthew, he likes to leap onto the odd bandwagon, does our Keir? So which one is he going to choose?
No, he's been absolutely consistent on his position on the start. He wasn't consistent in how he outlined on the LBC interview because he got into a mess.
That was a shocker, wasn't it?
Look, absolutely. As somebody who was the head of broadcasting for the Labour Party, that would have been one of my nightmare days if I'd still been in the job. And I think having protesters outside a speech is always a good look for a Labour leader because it shows that the hard left, the people the British people don't feel affinity with, are against you. It shows
you're in the mainstream. That's always a good look, though, Matthew, when some of them protesters are actually supported by some of the MPs on the back benches.
I don't think the MPs on the back benches are supporting the protesters. Look, he was absolutely right just to suspend Andy McDonald, who used From the River to the Sea, and he should be equally hard on anybody else who does that.
Linda's
That's different to calling for a ceasefire.
Militarily, you can't start a war and then a couple of weeks in launch a ceasefire because you have not even started to achieve your objectives.
So a ceasefire, Matthew, but at the right time.
Yeah, we need humanitarian pauses so that aid can get in. It's looking like the aid situation is looking a little brighter, which will help Keir. Frankly, the more distressing the pictures are from Gaza, the harder his position will be. That's what will be driving it. Because, as I say, this has been driven by, the people side, not the people who support Hamas, which is, not people in the Labour Party, and the one guy who used the chant is out, but the people, the sort of mass opinion, not just the Labour Party, but what you might call kind of left-of-centre opinion, are driven by the pictures. They're driven by that humanitarian concern. So we need more aid needs to get into Gaza, and then that would help Keir politically, and would also, obviously, above everything else, be good for the situation on the ground.
I mean, we've spoken about what's happening in Israel, Linda, but it's important what happens on our own turf as well when it's the next general election.
Yeah, I mean, this situation now isn't going to ease up before the next general election. That's the point. And as Matt was saying, with those images coming out of the Gaza Strip, they are going to just add more and more fuel to the fire because they are images. The issue with October the 7th and what happened there is we've heard about awful, heinous, barbarous crimes, but we are now looking at these images all the time. Last night we heard that surgeons were operating without anaesthetic. Now, the problem is that is going to make a big difference on the streets in this country. And a lot of people I know, including my family, who live in this constituency, are genuinely concerned now that the whole thing will ignite.
Matthew.
I think that's a real danger, and of course social media is absolutely driving it. I mean, I was just thinking earlier on the way here about the Iraq War. If can you imagine that when Labour MPs were under pressure over the Iraq War, if we'd been living in the age of Twitter and social media, they'd have all had to individually declare their positions. It would have been intolerable. I don't think, but I think Blair wouldn't have got it through.
But I tell you what doesn't help: some of the reporting by the mainstream media, like the BBC, reporting incorrect facts. I think they held their hands up. I mean, this doesn't help anything, does it, to unite us as a country?
In this situation, you can't jump the gun too quickly. When I believe that the BBC said that that rocket that landed on the hospital had been fired by Israel, you've got to check that stuff out because rockets, they're like bullets. They have a profile. You can check them out. You'll have a reasonable view of who fired that within 2 hours and a much better view within 12 hours. I've spoken to crash investigators on this subject, and the fact of the matter is 30% of those missiles that Hamas was sending over the border misfire.
Yeah,
that should have been obvious.
The BBC too quick to get the headline out.
In the instance where they, he didn't absolutely say it was Israel. He sort of said it looked like it was. Yeah. That was too much. It needs a calm. It needs a breath. Look, it's incredibly difficult reporting from the field, but even so, because it's so important and has such an incendiary effect with communities around the world, you need to have that breath and just establish the facts first. So I think that things have calmed down on the BBC, and that breath has been taken in more recent days. But the problem now is it's everything's clipped, everything's taken out of context. Everything circulates on social media. Yeah. People live in an echo chamber on social media, whichever echo chamber it is, left, right, whether you're in the Muslim community or not. People are listening to voices that they want to.
And you listen to TikTok now, which is the fastest growing social media platform. Yeah. And you've got to the situation now where people believe, experts now believe, digital experts, that actually social media can instigate incidents, not just reflect them, but actually instigate them.
I agree. We see that with young people, don't we?
Yeah. I think so therefore it is incumbent on everybody else to, the traditional sources of information to be as calm as possible. And so I'm glad that the BBC is just, I think it's just, as I say, it's that sort of little breath. It's just that calmness that it needs in its reporting, so it is fair and accurate.
But Linda, is the media out of control on this? I don't just mean the mainstream media, I mean social media, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. People can pretty much publish what they want.
I mean, that really worries me because I do a lot of advisory work for our emergency services, and I honestly, a bigger and bigger chunk of what I talk about is social media, citizen journalism. Now, citizen journalism has its place. When you look at open source intelligence, that can be quite a valuable thing. But actually, when you've got people out with a high-vis jacket and citizen journalists written on the back and photographing with their iPhones, broadcast standard pictures.
Yeah, but we talk about citizen journalists, but when the BBC, printing headlines like that, Matthew, are setting the bar so low, what do you expect from citizens?
I think, look, it clearly, with the missteps that the BBC made, not just the BBC, ITV News has been criticised this in recent days for who it's been interviewing. That then that loses your moral high ground, as it were, and so that's why it's imperative for all traditional media outlets to realise that, frankly, the standards are more important than ever because, as you say, they need to be the clear beacon on the hill with clear factual.
When I was a kid growing up, my dad used to say to me, and most parents did say, "Don't believe out your reading paper." And,
That's true.
I think it's still true today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's what, everybody should think everything with a pinch of salt. They should think about the source, don't you agree?
Totally, but I'm a former newspaper journalist. I've had 3 staff jobs on 3 different national newspapers.
And I work for the BBC, so between us, we've got the mainstream media covered.
So we've got it covered. But the fact of the matter is, as I say to people when I'm doing any coaching, that the mainstream media has a lot of checks and balances. Now, there may be some problems early on with the BBC that Deborah Turner did in fact address.
OK, guys, look, so
up.
we've got 2 journalists on the panel today, and it's probably one of the most untrustworthy professions in the world.
You know who always picks journalists on the untrustworthy politicians?
Listen, please do not go away, because coming up next, we've got the brilliant Francine Lewis. Looking forward to her. She does some great impressions.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
No, thank you. My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, that's Last Orders at the Bar, and today I'm joined by the very lovely Francine Lewis. Britain's Got Talent, impressionist, watched it about 10 years ago.
That's
but
right.
you had a bit of a career before then, Francine.
I did, and I think a lot of people think I came out of Britain's Got Talent,
Yeah.
but I had a great career in the late 90s. I actually started on a talent show called The Big Big Talent Show, which Jonathan Ross presented. It was the same format. ITV, Saturday night show, the audience vote for you at the end. I got voted, I got to the finals. I got pipped to the post by Paul Zerdin's Puppet Sam.
Got me by a puppet?
Yeah, I got beaten by a puppet.
Okay.
But that really kick-started my career. And I did so many exciting things. Like I had my own show on Capital Radio.
Yeah.
I was a team captain on a Channel 5 show called Night Fever, where I was with Claudia Winkleman, Davina McCall, Amanda Holden. It was such a great time. And I was doing the Generation Game with Jim Davidson. So
Wow, Jim's a great friend of the channel. So, female impressionists. It's not very often you see females doing impressions, so that must have started at an early age. Probably messing about at school, Francine, doing impressions of teachers or characters or whatever.
Well, I was a TV fanatic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I started at 6 and I would watch, or my mum always put all these American soaps on, and I became obsessed with Dynasty and Dallas and Joan Collins. And I literally would go upstairs to my room, I'd make a cigarette out of paper, put on my mum's red lipstick, and I'd go, "How, Blake, how dare you come barging into my office giving me orders? Don't you realise it's Alexis Morel, Carrington Colby Dexter you're speaking to?" And then went to school. It made me unpopular and popular, because everyone who knew I did impressions would be standing around me in the school playground, going, "Come and do this one, do it." And then the boys would think there was a fight going on.
Yeah.
But then I did people that I knew, like some of my friends, who thought I was taking the mick out of them.
right,
So
okay.
I got threatened a few
Did
times.
you get in trouble
as
at
well.
school for doing it?
Only by like the kids that thought I was taking the mick out of them.
Yeah.
But I honestly feel when I do someone's voice, it's a compliment.
I think it's a compliment.
I'm a fan of yours. I love watching you, but not everyone sees it that way, unfortunately.
So you've done your TV shows, you've done your impressions, you've done Britain's Got Talent. We've also got this here. What's this here?
This is my new book called I Play. I'm so proud of this book. See, when the kids were young, I loved reading to them at night. I loved making the stories funny, and it was something I always wanted to do. And this is about 3 mice, Jimmy and Jamie, who are twins, and their sister Flip Flop.
Yep.
And for their birthday, they get some a smartphone and a tablet, and it just teaches our kids how technology can change their social lives, their playtime, their mental health. So it's got great stories, $8.99. You can get it on WH Smith, Pegasus, Amazon.
Well, that's not a plug, is it?
There you
but
go.
They sound like spoilt mice to me. So, impressions.
Yes.
I know you do a few from Corrie.
Yes.
I was talking earlier about Audrey from Corrie. I mean, what would she make of this place now?
It's a lot more glamorous than the Rufus return. But honestly, our Gail and David, the trouble I have with them, I need a drink.
Wow, that was incredible. And
Oh, I say, yes. Oh, I say, the Queen, very gorgeous. The thoughts give me dad, Margaret, and cause me eyes are playing up. I feel ever so weak.
you almost look like Dot Cotton as
Oh,
well.
don't
then.
say that.
Yeah, you did, no, yeah,
Don't
proper,
say
yeah. And I can remember there was a landlady in Corrie many years ago called Raquel.
Yes,
You remember her?
Well, do you know, honestly, I used to be a model, you know, and then I started pulling pints.
That's incredible. It's like she's here in the room, isn't it, guys? I mean, that's...
No one's safe when I'm around. No one is
Who was
safe.
your favourite impression?
I think it has to be. I have 2 favourites.
You know what, Mrs. Me and my Aussie love this show because you're fabulous, darlings.
Yeah, that's Sharon Osbourne. I got that one straight away.
And obviously, never underestimate the pricing. I don't know, I love doing the pricing. I just do. What do you think? I love it.
That's Jordan, isn't it? Katie Price.
Yeah.
We're on the pull as well today, so...
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, well, I want to
I'm
see you...
always on the pole, so...
Really? I want to see you pull a pint. Wife alert there, by the way. Pull a pint.
Okay.
You've got 30 seconds.
30
to pull a
seconds
pint,
to pull
and
this...
I'm going to mark you. I think Esme's going to come back and mark you out of 10. So it's just a matter of pulling a pint as quick as you can and slapping it on the bar.
OK,
Go
well,
for it.
do you know what? I've never done this before,
Yeah,
so
they all say
let's
that.
see what comes out
that's a
of
shocker.
this.
This is...
Is this good so far? It's a
well,
bit
I don't
frothy.
know. Well, it's meant to have a little bit of froth on.
Oh, I don't know if
And
it's
then
a
you can
bit-
put it on the bar, yeah?
Yeah.
Anybody want to shave?
Oh, do you know what? That just looks all froth.
I mean, what would Dot Cotton make of that in the Vic?
Well, what I want to know first, is it get out of my pub?
I like that one. That's rather Wednesday.
No, do you know what? That looks a shocking pint.
It's terrible.
It's really bad. It's a sort of pint that I would like if it's a cappuccino, because I like a lot of froth.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty shocking.
I guess if somebody sold you that in a pub, what's London prices? 5 or 6 quid? Is it 7 quid for a
I
pint
think
or
it's
something
more.
like
I
that?
think London prices would be more.
I
I,
mean,
think you're
I'll-
looking at more £7. Do you know, I've never ever in my life tried to drink a pint. I don't intend to, by the way.
And you never tried to pour one before, have you? Obviously.
I've never tried to pour one. I've never
Yeah.
drunk one. It's not something. Is it your drink?
No. Esme, are you there?
Hi, Lee.
This is your pub. If you had a landlady serving that calibre of pint, how long would she last?
Not 2 minutes.
Not 2 minutes.
Really? Yeah, but the part at least.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, really? Is it that bad, Esme?
It's well, I wouldn't serve it, no, but I think we'll probably give you a 6 for that. I think.
Six?
I think that's a bit
That's not
generous,
bad.
that is.
That's not bad.
That's a bit generous.
Right,
It is
so
6.
I would love to see the professional pull the part. Oh, we can't. Can we do
Esme,
that?
go on then.
Because
Go on,
I
Esme.
want to know how you
I'm
do
having a
what
go.
your knack is.
Ah, you see, there's a tilt.
Ah, there's a tilt to the glass. It's not just holding it in straight.
I'll probably mess it up now.
No, you're not going to mess it up, Esme. And
Let's
that's
have a look.
oh, it's very
Oh,
professional.
wow.
It's all about the tilt, the angle,
Yeah.
and how you, whatever. Look at that,
Amazing.
So that's ready to drink. That is, Francine. Yours, probably if you come back tomorrow afternoon.
It's a real. Oh, I say.
Well, that's been brilliant, Francine. Lovely to meet you. Good luck with the book.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Esme,
Thank
for
you.
marking.
Thanks, Lee. Thank
That's
you.
last orders and on the poll altogether. Listen, thanks for watching Lee Anderson's Real World here on GB News. Back next week at 7 p.m. on GB News. It's been a brilliant show, been some brilliant guests. Good night and stay safe.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in My Big Opinion, Britain's wokest bank strikes again. After cancelling Nigel Farage, now they want to snoop onto your account to find out how environmentally friendly you are. In My Take at 10, it should be a time of the year to celebrate. But with their latest awful advert, Marks and Spencer want to cancel Christmas. Plus, top US Conservative commentator Michael Knowles live in the studio. Tomorrow's papers and My Pundits. We're live from 9.
Evening, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. A mixed picture this weekend. A fine day by and large for Scotland and Northern Ireland tomorrow, but there is more wet and windy weather to come. We pretty much have said goodbye to Storm Ciarán, but here comes another area of low pressure, and that will bring more rain tonight, approaching the southwest. Ahead of it, still a few showers around, particularly this evening if you're heading out over northwest England, parts of southern Scotland. Elsewhere, many places dry and clear. And it will actually turn quite chilly. A touch of frost possible through the northeast of Scotland. But further south, it's all about the rain coming in, turning windy once more. Not as wild as Thursday, but any more rain likely to cause problems. So we do have a Met Office yellow warning in place. A lot of spray across southern England on the roads, a lot of surface water and the potential for further flooding. The rain eases here, and then it turns brighter, but with heavy blustery showers through the afternoon. The rain likely to persist in this zone across Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, Lancashire into North Wales. So quite a damp, cold day here. Brighter skies for Scotland and Northern Ireland. In the south, we could get into the teens. It'll feel cooler than that, though, with a gusty wind. Still quite breezy in eastern England on Sunday with some early rain. I'm hopeful that will clear away and we'll see some brighter skies developing. Many places seeing sunny spells, but certainly in the west, from late morning onwards, quite a few heavy showers coming in. Again, a cool feel to begin with, and temperatures by the afternoon 9 to maybe 14 in the south.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you. My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. Now, this is a new show aimed at an enormous demographic, the out of touch. But the out of touch who have chosen to stay out of touch, and the out of touch who don't even know that they are. So, if you're looking for photographs of reality stars' breakfasts, or details of the latest trans person's bicycle accident, or for a fun story about an old woman who hasn't sneezed for 70 years, this is not the show for you. It's just a lot of very dollery old fools making it up as we go along. However, the good news is there'll be lots of cats. Now, I want to show you something. There's an organization called the European Broadcasting Union, and every year they ask 1,000 people in each European country about whether they trust the printed press in that country. So let's look at some of the recent results. Here's 2009. Most trusted: Luxembourg, Portugal, Czech Republic, Netherlands, Austria, so forth. Down here, we're getting to Poland and North Macedonia, Latvia. And then right at the bottom here, last, and by all means least, the United Kingdom. Let's see 2010. Now, here we go again, Netherlands, Austria, and all that. And down here at the bottom, in last place, the United Kingdom. Let's do 2011. No, we're still down at the bottom in 2011. Lowest degree of trust in printed media in Europe, the United Kingdom. 2012, please. Ah, we've gone up one. We've got above Greece. Oh, that's terrific. Fleet Street's heart must be swelling with pride. 2013. Oh, we're down again. 2014. 2015. 2016. Oh, come on. 2017. 2018. Look! We're above North Macedonia and Greece. Oh, makes you proud to be English. Let's see 2019. Oh. It's not very good, really, is it? So why is trust so low in British newspapers? I think we need an expert, and fortunately we've got one. He's a professor of communications at the University of Westminster, and he's Steve Barnett, and he's actually rather nice. Ah, you've got a kitty. You like it?
I'm gonna hand the kitty over to you.
I'm charged of the kitty.
You're the Bond villain.
Now, tell me, Steve, why is trust so low in printed media?
And I think there are essentially two reasons. The first is that we have long had a tradition in the UK that our broadcast journalism are bound by rules of accuracy and impartiality.
Our broadcast?
Yeah. So if you're working in broadcasting, you know that there are rules that you've got to tell the truth, you've got to back it up with facts, but also you've got to give both sides of the argument. Whereas at the press, for generations, you can essentially say what you want. Now, there's nothing wrong with being opinionated, as long as people are aware that there is a difference between the news pages where you expect to see facts and the opinion pages where people can sound off and